Hey everyone, my name is Jake, and welcome to the 10th episode of Good Timin. As always on this podcast, we're going to be talking all about one of our favorite bands, the Beach Boys. And today we are going to be covering an album that is sometimes a bit overlooked and forgotten by fans because it's kind of sandwiched between some of the band's strongest and most beloved albums. But this is also an album that's definitely worth checking out because it contains some really great songs. And it's also a pretty unique record in the band's discography. And that album, of course, is Carl and the Passion So Tough. So as we've done on our previous album episodes, we're going to be discussing the album's history and background. We're going to do a track-by-track rundown of the album and share our thoughts and opinions on each song. And we're also going to get into some of the outtakes and unreleased tracks from around the time. As many of you probably know, there are some really cool songs that the band recorded during this early 70s period that kind of remained in the vault for quite a while. So we're going to give those songs some attention and give our thoughts on that material. So joining me today, I have the usual lineup of Reilly, Justin, and Matt. So as always, glad to have you guys here. And I'm looking forward to hearing all of your thoughts and opinions on this album. So before we get into our discussion, I thought it would be good to share some basic facts and info about Carl and the Passions in case any of you listening aren't super familiar with it or just need a refresher. So this album was released on May 15th, 1972 on Brother Reprise Records, and it was the Beach Boys' 18th studio album. It was recorded between December 4th, 1971 and April 13th, 1972. And like many of their previous albums, most of the recording was done at Brian Wilson's home studio in LA. One of the most notable things about Carl and the Passions is that it's the band's first album to feature South African musicians Blondie Chaplin and Ricky Fataar. They had both previously played in a group called The Flame and were recruited by Carl Wilson and Jack Reilly to become official members of the band in 1972. In terms of this album's sound and style, it's honestly kind of all over the place. There's a few R&B influenced rockers like Here She Comes and Marcella. But there's also some songs that veer into other genres like country, soul, and even gospel. So in terms of the album's chart performance, it didn't do especially well. It charted at number 50 on the US Billboard chart and number 25 in the UK. And it also received kind of mixed reviews from critics. But today the album is still a bit divisive among people, but it definitely does have its fans. I know, Reilly, you're one of them. And as I said earlier, it's certainly one of the most unique records that the band ever put out. So I think that's a pretty solid introduction to Carl and the Passions. So now to get into some more about the album's background and history, I'm going to hand it over to Reilly and Justin. So do you guys kind of want to explain where the Beach Boys were at this point and how this album came together?
Sure. So the last episode that we had when we were talking about Surf's Up, I'll just stop from there. Surf's Up was released on August 71. And then after that album was released, they ended up doing a little bit of a tour around the States, and especially concentrating on university dates from September to early December of 1971. And then after that little tour, they started recording this album. It seems like it was recorded really, really fast. The first couple things that they started was the Marcella demo, which wasn't called Marcella at the time. And then A Road Not Taken, which ended up being All This Is That. And then Dennis had a couple tracks he called number 4 and number 5. Number 4 was Make It Good. Number 5 was an untitled Dennis track. Cuddle Up as well, too, started around this time. Bruce's 10 Years Harmony, Out in the Country, and then possibly Body Talk was also recorded around this time as well. So they started recording this album into February or so, and then they took a little bit of a break. They ended up going to Holland. This was their first main trip to Holland that they had in 1972. And they did 2 TV appearances in Holland. They did Top Pop. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Top Pop YouTube channel. They have like all different archival footage from like the 1970s onwards and stuff. So they actually played that show on February 24th. And as of right now, we haven't seen the footage yet of that, but it's possible that that exists because they have quite an extensive amount of footage that they're still trying to get through, and they're putting through on YouTube right now. So maybe we'll see that in the future sometime. And then the next day, they ended up doing the Grand Gala Du Disc TV show. This was kind of like a big concert with the Bee Gees, Johnny Cash, and some of the other more people of the time were playing that show as well too. So there's like a big concert. There's no TV feed from this anymore, but the audio recording exists on YouTube if anybody wants to listen to that. They played Heroes and Villains, Sloop John B., Surf's Up, and Student Demonstration Time, which was actually a little minor hit in the Netherlands. That's why they played it. And on Top Pop, they played Marcella. It was a lip sync. And like I said, this could exist. We might see in the next few years when they get through all their footage. But we'll keep our fingers crossed on that one. So then after that, they took early March off just for a little bit. And then mid-March, they resumed touring, mainly around like New York and the East Coast of the US. And then from April 3rd to 19th, that's when they finished the rest of the bulk of the album. And then, as Jake said, it was released on May 15th, 1972. Number 50 in the US, number 25 in the UK, number 40 in Canada. I was surprised that we actually got a little bit better response here than the US, but not much. There was 2 singles that were released from this album. The first one was on May 15th as well, the same day as the album. You Need a Mess of Help to Stand Alone with Cuddle Up on the B-side. And this did not chart other than in the Netherlands. So like it seems like they were really popular in the Netherlands at this time. And this could have been part of the reason why they ended up going to Holland for the next album. But we're not going to get into that yet, but at a later date we'll get into all that. It was number 29 in the Netherlands, that single. So that was pretty good for them. June 26th, Marcella was released with Hold On Dear Brothers, the B-side. And then this was number 20 in the Netherlands. And then the US, it actually charted. It was number 116 on Cashbox and number 129 in Record World. So not too good. They were coming off of the high of Surf's Up, and this wasn't really what they really wanted at this time. So it was a little bit of a disappointment. I should also mention in between the album being finished and the album being released, Brian Wilson was also working on the spring album at this time. He wasn't really heavily involved. I know, like mostly just demos and kind of the genesis of the songs. David Sandler was the one who really finished that album off, and that ended up being released in July 1972, the spring album. So after Carl and the Passions was released, they did a European tour, which was in Germany, Holland, and the UK. And then from June to August, this is when they head to Holland, and then we'll continue that on with the next album episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the history.
Yeah, I think it's pretty important to note that Ricky and Blondie joined the band around this time too. Carl saw the Flame performing live in a London nightclub, and he was impressed. And for the next couple of years, they were kind of intertwined with the band, at least. Carl produced the Flames record, which is also a very good album. Blondie joined in on a couple of tracks in the studio. I think he's on Student Demonstration Time. But also, Ricky started filling in for Dennis when Dennis injured his hand. I got to be honest, I forgot how, but Ricky started filling in. And kind of from there, they're integrated with Jack Reilly. So he punched a wall.
He was trying to shut the door, and his hand went through a thing of glass. He was kind of drunk.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Shocker.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Ricky started filling in on drums, and with Jack Reilly kind of digging their sound, and Carl being a pretty good supporter of them, they joined the band, and that's how they kind of got the sound for the upcoming albums.
Oh, nice. There's
Yeah, that's a nice picture.
Yeah. I find that picture funny because wasn't Brian kind of photoshopped in? Like they couldn't, like Brian wasn't appearing with the group at that time. So like if you see any
a different picture, yeah.
Yeah, if you see any promotional photos from that time, like Brian, they just like cropped him in, like because he was never really with the group. It's kind of funny.
They did.
Also note, the original pressing of Carl and the Passions in North America, I don't believe in Europe, but in North America, it came with a mono repress of Pet Sounds. Said mono repress is widely regarded to be one of the best sounding pressings of Pet Sounds. I don't have it. That's just what I've read. I've heard it from enough sources to believe it to be true, but I believe it was only in North America. I think in Europe, it was just released as Carl and the Passions. There was no Pet Sounds. And actually, Kreisgau, in his review of this album, even said they must not be confident in this new one that they have to lead with an old one. I'm pretty sure he said something like that.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like I think I said this on a previous episode, but yeah, it doesn't really. I think it's kind of a weird decision that they did that because like to me, yeah, like you said, it doesn't really reflect confidence in their new material, but it also doesn't make the new material come off as great either because like you're putting the best album the band ever released in terms of like critical acclaim, you're putting it out with this new album that like let's face it, I think the band even kind of knew it was kind of a bit of a mixed bag in terms of the material on there. It's not the best look for your new material. Because people are immediately going to compare the two. And it's like, most people are going to say, wow, Pet sounds a lot better than this, So I kind of question that decision by the band, but.
Even now people hear about like what Matt said, like this is the best mono version of Pet Sounds you can get. And then record collectors will pick up on that and then they go and buy this and they're like, well, I haven't even listened to Carl and Passions. All I'm worried about is this, so like you said, it's not really a good thing.
The other thing, too, though, I think there's another reason they put on there is because this was around the time that they, I think, briefly got the rights to some of their old Capitol material. So they wanted to make money off that because Capitol cut off their revenue stream in the late 60s, early 70s. I don't remember the exact year because Capitol took everything out of print. So that cut off the royalties. So I think that was another reason, too, they stuck it on there. And then I don't know if you guys have heard that weird commercial where it's like, Carl's like, what's this beard or something? You guys ever heard that ad? That's like an ad for Carl.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't it be nice? And he's like, ugh. This beard is like something I haven't heard it in a while, but I think it was on one of those I think it's called like Endless Bummer. It's like one of those bootlegs. It's like the worst of the Beach Boys. I think it's on there. It's like the funniest damn thing.
I don't think I've ever heard that. I'm gonna have to give that a listen. That sounds hilarious.
It's the radio commercial they had for Carl and the Passions.
Yeah, I've heard some other promos from that time. Like I've heard promos for like Sunflower and Holland and some of those, but I've never heard that one, so I'm definitely have to check that out. Something I wanted to mention about this album's recording that I've read before is that part of the reason that like it kind of does sound like it's kind of all over the place in terms of the sound is because the members were recording this separately. Like there were 3 different groups. I believe it was, I think I wrote it down. It was Carl, Ricky, and Blondie was one group. Mike and Al was another group. And then Dennis was working with Daryl Dragon. So you had 3 groups kind of working together, but separately from each other, which kind of resulted in kind of a mixed sound. And then there's a quote from Ricky Fattar where he said, it was all just done very piecemeal. Somebody would be cutting a track over at Village Recorders and somebody else would be recording at Sunset. It was an in-between touring kind of an album. We kept changing studios all the time. Perhaps that's why it sounds so bad. And I will say, listening to this album, maybe you can add a little more to this, Justin, but like I personally don't think this is their best sounding album in terms of production. I think Sunflower and Surf's Up sound pretty good to my ears, but this one does sound a little more rushed to me. Do you kind of agree with that?
I do. It's a little bit muddier. The sound is a little bit muddy. It's a very basic sound compared to a lot of like Sunflower, for instance, where there's like overdubs on it, especially with vocals. This is very like stripped down, kind of roots rock, country. There's some country on there and some soul and stuff. They were really trying to go after what was happening in 1972. They were trying to like listening to Jack Reilly, and Jack Reilly was telling them you need to make this kind of music and do this and do that and do this, and they were listening to it. So this is what the album was, and it was rushed because they were on tour. It's actually pretty amazing that because they had just finished Surf's Up and then they just slam right into the studio again and started this again, and then they go right to Holland right after this. So it was a pretty grueling time between touring and like recording constantly, and I can see why they took all those years off after this because it was just really exhausting for them.
Yeah, and there's some quotes I've read from other members too, like besides Ricky. I've read a quote I think from Mike. Mike said like in his book that like this album was kind of rushed and they were just recording it in between touring. And I think Mike said something like even Carl didn't think it was the best effort. So yeah, it is kind of a mixed bag. And then also, like you said, one of you guys said like Brian didn't have too much involvement with this. He was more busy with the American Spring project. And so like he was kind of just doing his own thing. And I think there's a quote I wrote from Bruce Johnston, after he had left the band, and he said, I spoke to Brian a couple of weeks ago and he told me that he didn't really have too much to do with this album. I don't hear his voice very much on the album. And really I believe he was only involved with like only the songs that he wrote, correct? I'm pretty sure he was only involved with like Marcella and You Need a Mess of Help and maybe a couple of
Mess, yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's interesting because you look at Sunflower and Surfs Up, and obviously like we've said, Brian on Surfs Up, it's not like he was totally active in the recording of that, but obviously he had those really strong contributions at the end. And then Sunflower, he was pretty active in the recording. Yeah, so this album definitely tell. I'm sure people could tell at the time that this Brian's involvement.
He's stepping back.
Right,
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
One thing before we start that, how about we talk about where the name comes from? We haven't talked about that.
Yeah.
I think it was the name of a group that Mike and Brian put together with Carl in the early 60s, like before the band ever was a band. It was like some kind of school thing they did at Hawthorne High. And they're like, hey, Carl, do this group with us and we'll call it Carl and the Passions. So I think that's where the name comes from. Then So Tough, I guess it's supposed to be like an alter ego. Like it's like, when you look at like the name of an album, like an artist, it's like the artist and then the hyphen, the name of the thing. I just always call it Carl and the Passions. I don't ever say So Tough. I just say Carl and the Passions. I think everybody Carl and the Passions or CATP. So
and this album, it doesn't have their name on it. It just says Carl and the Passions. So Tough. That's it. It doesn't say the Beach Boys on it. So it's kind of one of the first ones, I guess, that didn't have their name on it.
A lot of their albums don't have them on it, so no surprise there.
In terms of the album titles, this is one of my least favorite Beach Boys album titles. I don't think it's good. Like you, Matt, I only call it Carl and the Passions. I never include because I feel like if you include it, it's like Carl and the Passions, So Tough. Like it just, I don't know. It doesn't work for me. I don't like it. And yeah, I think we've talked about the whole Carl and the Passions name before. Like, it's kind of questioned if the group actually ever existed, like if that was actually the name. Because I think Carl has even denied that it was ever a thing, I'm pretty sure, which is kind of interesting. Because you would think, like, Carl would be like, oh, yeah, I remember that. Carl's like, nope, like, that wasn't a thing. So
I think it was a one-off. It was just for, like, one event kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just to get, like, a big name at school or something. That's what Brian said.
And I also read that the title also kind of reflected how Carl was kind of taking over, like, in terms of running the group at this point, where, like, Carl's in more of a leadership role. Obviously, that had already kind of been happening, but now it's even more apparent with this album, with Brian kind of withdrawing a bit. So that's kind of an interesting way to look at it, too. But do we want to get into the tracks now? Do a track-by-track rundown? All right. Okay, so the first song on this album, on side 1, is You Need a Mess of Help to Stand Alone. Like Justin said, this was one of the singles from the album. And this song has never done too much for me, to be honest with you guys. I know, it's kind of a unique sound. It's got like that R&B rock influence going. It's got like some cool piano and stuff. But I don't know, this one doesn't really do anything for me. And I think part of it is the lyric feels a little clunky to me. I don't like the title very much. I think it's kind of stupid. Like, you need a mess of help to stand alone. It feels very like forced. And I'm pretty sure it was kind of forced because I think this song had a different name originally. What was it? Was it like Beatrice from Baltimore or something, Justin? I think I read that somewhere. I just know Brian wrote it and it had a different name before it was released as You Need a Mess of Help to Stand Alone, which I assume was Jack Reilly kind of like rewriting the lyrics to make it work. But this has never been my favorite song. I re-listened to it today. I re-listened to the whole album today to see like if it would grow on me. But I don't know. It feels a little long, and I'm not a big fan of it. And I don't like the he don't know. Like, I don't know. It just kind of doesn't do much for me. What do you guys think of this one?
I couldn't disagree more. I love it. I think it's very like rockin'. It's funky. It's very raucous. I love the lyrics. Sundial advancing. Love that part. I love that part you mentioned you don't like. So I couldn't disagree more. I think it's awesome, and there's a really cool music video for it too.
I do like the video. I have seen the video. It's a cool video.
I've never seen the video. But I mean, I kind of agree with Jake. It's never really done much for me. It's pretty good. Like, I don't think it's a bad song. It's taken a while for me to get used to those initial vocals on the song. They kind of feel almost a little too forced, but I've kind of gotten to it. I like the melody to it. I like the piano part. It is very rocking and grooving, but honestly, I feel like this is kind of like of a worse version of Funky Pretty. I feel like Funky Pretty did what this song couldn't do. I much prefer that song over this, but it's still fairly decent. I still enjoy it. But as an opener, I would much rather have had like Here She Comes or one of the other like harder songs in the album. So
yeah. Justin?
I think for this song, I initially felt the same way that Jake did the first time I heard it. It was like all over the place, and I just didn't understand it. And then I realized that they're trying to do something a little bit different here. And you have the great piano, and like there's a violin as well, and there's all sorts of instruments in this, and you can tell they tried to do something a little bit different. And when you listen to it a few more times, it really grows on you. It's not my favorite track on the album, but yeah, it's a good track after you hear it a few times.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the arrangement for sure. Like, there is a lot going on with the instruments, like you said. Like, there's violin on it. I do like the sound of the piano. It's kind of like a weird, like kind of like a funky sound, which I do like. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's just, it has grown on me, I would say. Like, I definitely like it more now than I did when I first heard it. But like, it's still nowhere near like a favorite of mine. And in terms of album openers, this is one of my least favorite, honestly, because I feel like the Beach Boys usually do have really strong album openers. Like you think of albums like Sunflower with like Slip On Through. You think of an album like, Friends, like with the title track, and Wouldn't It Be Nice on Pet Sounds. So I just feel like this isn't the strongest album opener in my opinion, but it could grow on me. I could see it growing on me, like you guys said.
On correction, the opener Friends is meant for you.
Meant for you.
It's meant for you.
That's a brain fart right there.
Honestly, you could probably just mesh them together. Yeah, I mean, I like this song. I don't know if I'd pick it as an opener, but I don't think it's the worst opener they ever had. I think Rock and Roll Music is far worse, personally.
Up to that point.
Up to that point. Yeah, probably. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of the Smiley Smile version of Heroes and Villains either, but yeah, probably.
All right. We'll move on to track 2 on side 1, which is Here She Comes. So this is a Ricky Fattar and Blondie Chaplin collaboration here. And this is a song that I really do like. Does it sound much like the Beach Boys? Not really. But I think that's kind of the fun. That's kind of what makes it so unique and fun to listen to. It's got its own sound going. It's got like this cool like R&B piano going. Real kind of just kind of a vibe. It's a great song to listen to. I love the lyrics, as you guys have pointed out. Some really cool lyrics on this one. Lyrics that are pretty much like you can look at any other song in the Beach Boys discography. Not many have lyrics like this. It's very unique. I love the middle section of this song, the bridge. I kind of forget how it goes, but I really do like it. I also like the guitar solo on this song a lot. And it's definitely one of the highlights of the album, in my opinion. I like this one a lot. What do you guys think?
I agree. I love it. Probably honestly my favorite song on the album. Honestly, I really think about it. I love that, like you said, it's kind of funky. It kind of has that soulful vibe. I think Blondie has a really great, like, kind of soulful grit to his voice. Wherever she goes, the devil dances and the gods lay down defeat. One of the best lyrics I think I've ever heard in a Beach Boys song. I love the listen, hear the music play. I think it's just a great cut. It's a great cut. And it's like you said, it's not like something you'd expect from the Beach Boys, but I think that's what makes it kind of cool. And I much prefer it over Hold On Dear Brother. I'm not a big fan of that one. We'll get to that.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite songs from the band in general. It's in my top 20. It's one of the first deep cuts I got into. So I really love this song. It was like one of those first songs that really shocked me that this is a Beach Boys song. And then I kind of figured out down the line that it really isn't. It's a Ricky and Blondie song, but it doesn't change anything for me. Maybe it is because it was just one of the first deep cuts I heard, but for me, it's the clear standout. This is the best song on the album. The guitar riff is awesome. I like the bass lines. I like the piano. All of it just fits together. It is a fantastic rock song. There's a lot of room for like jamming. I feel like this song could be extended to like 12 minutes if the Beach Boys wanted to. They weren't really a jam band, so they couldn't. But this is just one of my favorite Beach Boys cuts like ever. Period. I love this song.
Justin?
Yeah, this song is probably, like you guys said, it's probably one of the best songs on the album. I really love the drum sound on this. The drums are really loud and it makes it feel like really powerful. And it reminds me a little bit of Steely Dan's Can't Buy a Thrill, which had been released around the same time too. It has kind of that same piano sound. The guitar solo, like you guys mentioned, it's a really great guitar solo. Blondie's vocal, it's just unlike anything else the band had ever really released up to that point. But I think people who listen to all sorts of different genres, and especially like 70s music, can really appreciate how good this song is. Instead of thinking of it as a Beach Boys song, it's just a really great song.
Yeah, like I think Reilly, you mentioned that you played this for one of your friends, right? And they did, and you said that this is the Beach Boys, and they were like, "Really, this is the Beach Boys?" And you said they really liked it. which is that's cool. Makes the song cool because it's like you can put it on for somebody and they'll be like blown away by the fact that like, wow, the Beach Boys could do something like this. Like this is really unique. I like you guys said, yeah, there's a lot of great parts of this song. Like I love the part you mentioned, Matt. I also love the rolling down the road, rolling down. Like there's like so many great parts of this song, and it's one of those songs where like if you look at the length, like it's over 5 minutes, but it doesn't feel like 5 minutes because there's a lot on. Like it doesn't get boring because they incorporated a lot of different parts into the song. So I think it works really well, and yeah, definitely one of my favorite songs on this album. So, all right, we'll move on to the third song on side 1 of the album. This is He Come Down. So this is kind of the gospel-influenced song on the album. I mentioned that was a genre that appears on here, and this is kind of the song that represents that. This one's a little cheesy. Actually, I'd say it's pretty damn cheesy. You got some lyrics about, like, meditation, the Maharishi and stuff. You know, you got Mike preaching about the Maharishi. So the lyrics are definitely corny a bit, but the song is kind of growing on me. I do like the piano on it. I like how that sounds. The transition from the verses to the chorus is a little bit jarring because the verses are very like kind of calm, you know, very like laid back, and then it's like I believe, you know, so it kind of jumps right into that chorus, but it's starting to grow on me a bit. I think one of you guys also mentioned it's starting to grow on you too. And it's a fun song. The only part I don't really like, I don't like after the chorus finishes and they're going down, down, down. I don't really care for that. But the rest of the song I do kind of like. It's growing on me for sure, but I'm still not a favorite. What do you guys think?
It's all right. I like parts of it. Like I do think the lyrics are kind of earnest, which is nice, albeit cheesy. Obviously, like Mike really believed in what he was singing in, so I got to give him props for that. You know, this was something that meant a lot to him. All this, you know, Maharishi, transcendental meditation stuff. I don't really think the gospel elements work for me that well. It almost kind of feels like two songs trying to come together because, like, you have like the verses that are more subdued, and then all of a sudden, yes, I believe. It's like almost like two different songs that don't really quite mesh well together. You know what I mean? So it's all right for me. Like, yeah, it's not I don't mind it in the context of the album, but like I probably wouldn't like put it on just to listen to it, if you know what I mean. It's all right. Yep. For me at least.
Yeah, this one's kind of grown on me. I agree with Jake on everything. It's taken a while, but it is starting to grow. I mean, this very, very cheesy, not like Bruce Johnston cheesy. It's just like kind of like you know what I mean. It's the Beach Boys doing a gospel song, which for the longest time I didn't think would work, and then I listened to it about a couple of days ago, and I'm like, all right, this is starting to hit. It's very cheesy, but the melody is very catchy. I don't think it's a favorite of mine, but it works. The Beach Boys doing gospel. I don't really care for the lyrics though. Like the name drops of Jesus and the Maharishi, I think I could go without. But if you don't mention either of those names, I think it'll work for me a lot better. But what I didn't expect, and maybe it's just because I haven't really listened to the album as a whole in a while, was just how well it flows into Marcella. I don't know. I can't like describe how it flows into it, but just like I went from one song to the next, I'm like, oh, that's a pretty cool shift to the next song. So, but I'm starting to enjoy it. I don't think it'll ever beat Here She Comes or some of the other good tracks on this album, but it's definitely not a skip anymore, and I am starting to really find it catchy. Justin?
For me, a lot of these tracks on this album were growers. The first time I heard them, I didn't really think much of them. This is one of them. The gospel part is a little bit over the top, like you guys mentioned, and especially with the subdued verses. And then all of a sudden you're going into like the chorus. It's just like it's a little bit too loud compared to the verses, but it has grown on me. I don't, like you guys said, the lyrics are kind of questionable, and it's a pretty good album track. I wouldn't say it's one of the best tracks on the album, but it's pretty good. I don't usually skip it; just usually let it play through and go into Marcella.
Yeah, I wanted to mention quickly. I think maybe the part of the reason why I kind of like this song is the Clash have a song on Sandinista called "Sounds of Sinners" that's very similar, and I really liked that because I feel like that was done with in a good style and a good representation of the gospel genre. So I think maybe that kind of is why I kind of enjoy this a little bit more now, but still very, very over the top.
Song you just mentioned is a triple LP. Woo.
Sandinese slap.
No, I know. I'm just saying triple LP. I didn't realize it was that long because I know they just did London Calling, which was a double right before it.
Right.
Crazy.
Combat Rock, the next album after that, was intended as a double LP, and then actually I think it would have been better as a double LP. I love Combat Rock, but we're not talking about the Clash. But
No,
yeah,
I'm surprised that CBS let them do that because Prince, Warner Bros. Wouldn't let Prince do Sign of the Times as a triple.
Prince didn't should I stay or should I go? Or Rock the Casbah, or
Great
London
record.
Calling, which is
Sign of the Times is a great album though.
it's not as good as London Calling. London Calling's like in my top 5.
Probably not, but it's definitely a top 100 of all time. But we'll talk about that another time.
2 quick things I wanted to mention relating to He Come Down. One, the only other song I can think of before this song that has kind of like that gospel vibe a little bit is Dennis's Got to Know the Woman on Sunflower, where you got like the choir going like, got to know the woman. You know, I feel like that's kind of got a
It
similar
works
vibe.
a little bit better.
Yeah, it also feels a bit corny, similar to this one as well, but that song is a fun little song.
Yeah.
And then what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, this song, in terms of the credits, it's credited to Al, Mike, and Brian, actually. So I'm curious. I would be very curious to see like what parts Brian contributed. Like if it was more like musically, and then Mike and Al did more of the lyrics. I'm kind of curious as to like what Brian contributed. So that would be kind of interesting to find out.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think he played piano on this, Brian.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
I think, yeah. I'm not 100% sure on that though.
Well, the piano is actually my favorite part. So good job, Brian.
It says there on Wikipedia that he did play the piano on this. So
Cool. All right, so we'll move on to the final track on side 1 of Carl and the Passions, which is Marcella. So Marcella, this was also a single, and this one was written by Brian, and also credited to Tannen Ulmer and Jack Reilly. I do like this one a lot. This is one of my favorite songs on the album. I think it's a great like R&B rock song. I think Brian said he was kind of going for like a Rolling Stones vibe on this one, and you can definitely hear that for sure. I definitely get the vibe he was going for. It's got like kind of a slower groove to it, which I kind of like. I love the guitar solo on this. It's like very like George Harrison-esque. It sounds really good. That was the first thing that really like clicked with me when I heard this song. Like when that solo came out, I was like, oh my God, like that's awesome, you know? And really, to be honest, that solo is the main reason why like I'm still kind of split. I'm like, do I prefer the studio version of this song or do I prefer the live version? Because like the live version has a lot of energy, but like I love that slide guitar solo on this studio version, and on the live version it's not really like that. So it's hard for me to decide, but I do really like this song. I would probably say it is my second favorite song on the album. And the other interesting thing about this song is that it reuses the melody from I Just Got My Pay, which is also like All Dressed Up for School. So you're kind of going back into like the Brian Wilson, like some of his older tracks and pulling a melody from it. So it's kind of interesting, but this song works really well. I like it a lot. What do you guys think?
I agree. I think it's a really good song. Like you said, Rolling Stones meets George Harrison meets Beach Boys. I really like in the chorus Dennis's backing vocals where it's like one arm under my shoulder, over my shoulder. I like his backing vocals are really cool. It's pretty rockin'. I would also say this is another case of a song where they took a melody from a song that wasn't so good and turned it into something much better. Because All Dressed Up for School I don't think is that great. I don't think I Just Got My Pay is that great. I think this is much better. Just like I know Jake, you're not a big fan of County Fair, but it was returned into I Do, which is much better than County Fair. So great reuse of the melody. And I know Tannen Ulmer has a credit on this. Justin, do you know how much of that he actually wrote, or was that just like a vanity credit?
It could be a vanity credit.
It's a vanity.
I'm not 100% sure. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, because I don't know much about this guy other than like apparently he had a lot of vanity credits. So I've heard, but I know Jack Reilly. The lyrics definitely sound like Jack Reilly. I could believe that. But yeah, I really like this song a lot.
But I love this song. It rips. The George Harrison slide guitar solo is probably my favorite part of the song. I think it was Brian specifically said it was inspired from the song "Let It Be." I really like the part where she's a fine, yeah. That might also be up there. This song has a lot of great moments. I don't think there's a dull moment in this song. I really like the intro. I don't know what instrument was used, but I think you guys know what I'm talking about.
Auto harp.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
that was really cool. I think this seriously, next to Here She Comes, really could have been a great album opener. I don't know why they chose You Need a Mess of Help to stand alone as the opener. I think this really would have been awesome, especially with that little intro. But definitely, like, I think this is up there with Here She Comes. Like, those kind of are neck and neck. I much prefer like Here She Comes as like a personal favorite, but in terms of quality, I think this is like easily one of the highest quality tracks just from this general era from like 70 to 74. So awesome song. Love this slide guitar. I love the fine part by Carl. The one arm over my shoulder. All of it rips. There's not a single dull moment in this song.
Reilly, you beat me to it. I was going to mention that too. I love that. She's a 5. I love that part. It's so good. I love the way it fades out too with the one arm over my shoulder. It's like a great way to close out the song. And again, this one, like, it runs for almost 5 minutes, but like I don't get bored of it. Like I think it's a great song overall. Like there's always something going on, so it works really well. Justin, what do you think of this song?
Yeah, this is another really strong track for me. I actually heard the in concert version first, so for me that's kind of the definitive version. Just because it's like more rockin' and more like it's a little bit faster, I think, on in concert as well too. But it's just a great song, and the studio version too. Like they used a couple different things like the auto harp and like the different backing vocals are a little bit more apparent in the studio version, so you can hear like the different layers and stuff. And yeah, it just sounds like it's a lot of effort was put into the song compared to a lot of the other songs on the album, and I think that's one of the reasons why this is such a strong track. And also because of Brian's presence as well too. It's kind of a weird subject matter too, because this was actually another song written about a masseuse, just like Annalie the Healer and some of the other ones that they wrote about masseuses. But we're not going to get into that. But yeah, it's probably for me, it's probably the second strongest as well too on the album.
I was just gonna say, talking about the masseuse for a second, or not just the masseuse, but this song. The lyrics kind of give me like almost like Arabian Nights vibes. Like I don't know why, like one arm over my shoulder, sandals dance at my feet, eyes that knock you right over. I don't know. I just imagine like some belly dancer or something. That's just the images that come in my head when I hear the lyrics.
That's Jack Reilly.
All right, so I guess we'll move on to side 2 of the album. So side 2 opens up with Hold On Dear Brother. This song was written, this is another Blondie Chaplin Ricky Pitar composition. This is a really kind of unique sounding song in the Beach Boys discography. It's got more of like a country vibe to it. It's very like laid back sounding. This one, I'm not like nuts about it. I could see it kind of growing on me over time. It's still not a song I would ever like choose to put on outside of the context of the album. But I feel like this one is a little long for my liking. But it has parts that I like. I think I've mentioned before, like I like the part like the "in your heart you'll always," however that goes. I like that part. But like I don't know, it just feels a little draggy for me. But it's not bad by any means. It is an interesting sounding song. What do you guys think of this one?
I agree exactly what you said. It drags. I know you like it, Reilly. I don't care for it. I just think it's kind of blah, boring. I don't think it's the worst song on the album. I think the worst song is coming up. Pains me to say it too because I love Dennis's songs, but I don't know what he's doing on this album. But this is just, like it has some parts I like, but as a whole, it just kind of drags for me. It's just, I don't really care for it very much. And it definitely shouldn't have opened side 2. I don't know what they were thinking putting that as the opener side 2.
I agree with that. I don't think it should have opened side 2. I think this album could benefit from a rearrangement of the tracks. But I love this song. I feel like it's not really country. It's more like southern rock meets folk rock. I think the way I described it in my notes was the band and CCR are on the road trip to meet the Beach Boys, which I think's solid representation of it. I mean, it does not sound like a Beach Boys song. It definitely sounds less like a Beach Boys song than Here She Comes. But but as for like the good parts about it, it was a quick grower. I didn't care for it my first listen, but my second or third listen, I think it finally clicked for me. I love it. I think the sentiment of the song is awesome. I completely understand why people find it boring, but I personally just really like this song. I'm a big fan of the band, so I mean maybe that's the reason why I like it. But I think it's one of their Ricky and Blondie's better contributions to the band. It is very slow, and I could go without some of like the country-esque sounds, but I still really, really enjoy the song.
I do. I will say, real quick before we go to Justin here, I do like. There's some slide guitar on this one too, right? I do. Or like the steel guitar. I do like that quite a bit. I like the sound of that for sure.
I think it's a steel pedal.
Steel pedal. Yeah. I like that a lot. I think Ricky's playing that. I'm pretty sure on this one.
Yeah.
Justin, what do you think?
Yeah, that was when Ricky was learning how to play pedal steel. So it's pretty good for somebody learning how to play. Yeah. I think it was pretty bold to put this as side 2 opener, to have the 2 brand new Beach Boys have the side 2 opener. It's pretty bold move, but like you guys said, it's kind of like a grower. It was a grower for me. The first time I heard it, didn't really like it. It was kind of boring, and then I find with the more music I listen to, especially from this era, the more I like it. It reminds me so much of, like Reilly said, the band has that kind of like that waltz. It's like a waltz 3/4 time, kind of Neil Youngish, kind of vibe around the same era. So yeah, it's a really it's a pretty good album track. I wouldn't, like I said, the other song there, it's not a great track, but it's a good album track, and it's not something that I would definitely skip. Plus, the vocals are really great as well too. It's just something unexpected for the band, which I'm really you have to commend them for that, for all those years of making surf records, and then to try something different and to not be afraid to do it, kind of thing.
Yeah, it was definitely a big swing. I gotta give them props for that. They did not play it safe on this record at all. Can't say that about some of the later stuff they did, but they definitely didn't play safe.
Yeah, I mean, that's the part of it, this album in general, that I do respect. I respect that, like, they were really trying something different. You know, like, this is a totally unique album in their discography, so I do think that's really cool. Sometimes I don't think the execution is perfect on all these songs, but I do get what they were going for. But this song, honestly, I think if it was a little bit shorter, I'd probably be more fine with it. I just think that it's 4 minutes and 40 seconds. That's a very long run time for this. I feel like chop a minute or a minute and like a half off of this, and I'd enjoy it a lot more, I think. Just a little too slow for my liking, but I could see it growing on me over time. All right, so the next song on this album is a song that I know we all really love. It's "Make It Good." This is the first of 2 Dennis and Gerald Dragon compositions on this album. And I think the title of this one is appropriate. "Make It Good." I think Dennis should have taken his own advice and made this song good. Because it's not good. It is boring. It's one of the most boring songs I think that Dennis ever wrote. This is a low light for Dennis, in my opinion. I think you said that before, Matt. This is one of Dennis's weakest efforts. This song just goes nowhere. We talked about it on the previous episode where we talked about songs that we don't really care for. I just don't think this song goes anywhere. It sounds like it was written on the spot. It's overly produced to hell. There's way too much going on. The only part of the song I remember is like "and you make it good," but like there's nothing else that I really remember. I don't like the way it opens either, with like the "look." Like it's just I don't like the way it starts. I don't like the way it ends. It just did nothing for me, and it's easily my least favorite song on this album. This one I don't see ever growing on me. I just think it's boring. What do you guys think?
Overly produced, that's a good one. Syrupy, sappy. Kind of a good precursor for Captain Tennille, I would say, actually, because it kind of was like the thing that they would later do. A bit overly produced, a bit heavy. And I say this as someone who actually really loves "Love Will Keep Us Together." I actually quite like that song. I know that's a song that a lot of people don't like. But yeah, no, I agree. It just sounds like you're right. Like it sounds like Dennis wrote it in like 5 minutes. It's just not good at all. Like it's probably the worst song Dennis wrote, honestly. Like I really don't like it. And I hate saying that because I love Dennis's songs. I love Pacific Ocean Blue, but what a misfire this was. But even the best can write some crap. So, I would say the one good thing about at least it's mercifully short. It's 2.5 minutes. So
it feels long, but it feels longer than that, though.
Mercifully short. At least it's not too long. But yeah, no, I agree. It's not good, and it pains me to say because I do love Dennis, but don't know what the hell he was doing on this song.
No, Matt, and you were saying too, like you were like it's kind of like a precursor to Captain and Tennille. Well, at least Captain and Tennille, their shit had melody. This doesn't even have a melody. It just goes nowhere, Like, I feel like their stuff is actually poppy and catchy. I'd much rather listen to "Love Will Keep Us Together" any day over this freaking song.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really melodic, but I guess you could say it's like kind of it's unconventional. It's got that going for it.
Reilly, what do you think of this one?
Boring. Oh my god. It doesn't go anywhere, and there's nothing to like. If it has like a boring like verse, but like a rewarding, very melodic melody for the chorus, I can at least like listen to the song and still somewhat enjoy it. This doesn't go anywhere. It's just still, and then it's just that for like the entire song. It's just it does feel like Dennis just rushed this and wrote it in like 5 minutes. And like it's also super overproduced. I don't need an orchestra like blasting, and it's just so unnecessary. It's like Phil Spector when he did the production for The Long and Winding Road, but like on steroids. It's just, at least with that, I can kind of like still enjoy the song. There's just nothing to build off of this. And being a huge Dennis fan, it was a huge letdown to have this. And I was shocked that, Matt, when you said it was 2.5 minutes, I thought it was like 5, like dead serious.
Reilly, do you like The Long and Winding Road? I thought you mentioned you didn't care for that song. I'm just curious because you said you can still enjoy The Long and Winding Road.
I can enjoy it, but I don't really care for it. Like, if that makes any sense. Like,
yeah, I personally really like that song, but I do think Spector kind of overproduced it. I like the version on Anthology 3, I think it's called. That's good because that's kind of what.
And Let It Be Naked.
It's too much no noise for me, but like I think it's too much noise removal they use on that. But I prefer the one from Anthology 3. But no, I get what you're saying.
I enjoy the song. I'm not gonna go out of my way to pick it and like play it. It's not on my Beatles playlist. I guess I enjoyed it in the context of the album. I don't know, like the song is like not terrible. The melody isn't like terrible. It's just super, super boring.
But this or Long and Winding Road?
Oh, Make It Good.
Oh, Make It Good. Okay.
Long and Winding Road has a pretty solid melody to it. This song, it's not bad. It's just so boring. It's like I'm a history guy. I loved history class, but this feels like me when I'm in that one history class where they're covering a topic I just don't like, and I just have to sit there, my hand on my chin. I'm just like the entire time.
I would say I've learned to appreciate history a lot more as I've gotten older, because when I was in high school, I was a math guy. I was math, science. Yeah, I actually did a project one time on it was a math project. I did a math project on, I did like the correlation between length of albums and how long the CD ran. That was a fun project, but that's just me being nerdy. All right, moving on.
Yeah, Justin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Make It Good. This is a misfire. I would say this is the worst positioning they could put it in on the album as the second track on side 2. This is more like if we had to have this on the album, put it on the end of side 1 or something, or have end of side 1 Dennis and then end of side 2 Dennis. He had so many better songs in the can. Wouldn't It Be Nice to Live Again would be a great track to put on this album. The arrangement was just too much. Daryl Dragon is to blame for that. He was the one that arranged the strings and the horns on this and everything. But I think it would have worked better as just like a piano ballad if he was going to do it, than without all the other stuff. But like you guys said, it's a really boring song.
Or if you're gonna put strings on it, don't do the strings like that. Do the strings like, you know how Mick Ronson used to do the strings for Bowie, and they were really good, like they were subtle, like on Life on Mars, something like that.
Right.
Which were just, like you said, so heavy and so like prominent in the mix, it almost like overpowers the thing.
Right.
Yeah. This was a 34-minute album. I don't see why Dennis could have just put Wouldn't It Be Nice to Live Again on here. I mean, with the different genres and just kind of like the bending of styles throughout the album, there's no reason why. I mean, they had Cuddle Up close out side 2. Why just Wouldn't It Be Nice to Live Again the end of side 2 and just put Cuddle Up at the end of side 1?
There you go.
I was gonna say earlier, Reilly, when you were talking about Long and Winding Road, I was gonna say, don't you dare put Make It Good above Long and Winding Road. I actually like Winding Road.
I wouldn't.
Like it a lot. Okay.
When you shared your spreadsheet, you did a good job. You had it really high up there when you shared your Beatles spreadsheet.
Yeah, I like that one. All right, so now moving from like the worst song on the album to what I think is the best song on the album, we have All This Is That. To me, this is the clear standout on the album. I was re-listening to it today. I went on a bike ride and I was listening through the whole album all the way. And hearing it in the context of the album, it makes me appreciate it even more, like for how great the song is. And it really kind of established for me that, like, yes, this is the standout for me. I just love everything about this song. I've mentioned it before. I made my top 10 Beach Boys song list on that episode. I just think it's a mesmerizing like song. It's just beautiful. I love the harmonies. As we've talked about before, the guys have done like some like meditation themed songs before, and a lot of them don't work. This one really does. I do really like the lyrics on this. I know they're kind of borrowing from like that Robert Frost poem. I think it's like The Road Not Taken. But it works really well. I love the vocals on this one, especially like I love Carl throughout this one. Like 2 ways and like, he just sounds so good. I love the outro where like you hear him going Jay Guru Dev and it like fades out. Like that's like so beautiful. I love Mike's parts. I think you mentioned this before, Justin, but like he sounds like he's like right in your ear, which is really cool. Like when he's like, might be actually, I've heard before that this part is Mike or Al, but I'm not sure which. But the part where they're like, golden auras glow around you.
Oh yeah, that's Al.
Yeah.
That's Al.
That's Al. Okay, yeah, because I've heard multiple people say like certain parts are Mike and certain parts are Al, so I didn't really know for sure. But yeah, I just love this song. I think it's beautiful. It's kind of got like that similar vibe to All I Want to Do a little bit, where it's like kind of a dreamy song. And I love it. I could go on and on about it, but I'll let you guys go.
I'll start. Yeah, it's very good. Definitely the highlight of side 2 for me because it's probably the only song on side 2 I like really like. Honestly, the rest of side 2 is just kind of whatever for me. I think you're right, Jake. It is spiritual without being too, like in your face, too like down your throat. Because I do think the problem I have with some of the other Beach Boys spiritual songs is that they're a little in your face. They're a little too like, kind of shove this thing down your throat. But this is more subtle. This is more subdued. I love, like you said, the Jai Guru Deva. Carl's vocal in general throughout this song I think is really nice. I think I've said before that this is probably one of the best songs that Brian had no involvement in. It is a really, really good song. By far, again, the highlight of side 2 for me. One of my favorites on the album. Probably not my absolute favorite. It's probably number 2 behind Here She Comes because I really do love Here She Comes. But it is a wonderful, wonderful song and by far the best thing on side 2. By far. Not even close.
Yeah, I same feelings as you guys. The top 3 songs from this album are very clear for me. Here She Comes is always going to be my number 1, but honestly, whatever one I'm listening to, either Marcella or All This Is That, I might put Marcella out a little bit more on top than this, but this was the last one that like really grew on me. Those big 3 songs from the album, but I mean when Carl's like when Carl hits the crap, 2 waves and I both travel by. That makes all that so good. Like the closing part was really cool, and I think this was really the only song on the album that showcases the harmonies from the band, which is very, very interesting for me. I don't really hear it on any of the other songs, but maybe I'm just having a brain fart and forgetting like something. But very, very beautiful song, very dreamy, like Jake said. It kind of has that dream pop element to it. And like Matt said, it has no involvement from Brian, which is very shocking. But I feel like this is really like we said, the album where Carl takes the lead, and it's awesome. I love this song.
Justin?
Yeah, so this is probably one of the best songs. I'd say it's the 3rd best song for me on this album, behind Marcella and Here She Comes. And then this song was actually written by Al and Mike after they had gone and traveled to become teachers of transcendental meditation with the Maharishi. So they were kind of proud that they became teachers, and they wrote this song because they felt enlightened after it. And even though it has those kind of the TM lyrics to it, the melody and production kind of mask it. And just like the beautiful singing, and it's a very Beach Boys-esque song as well too, because it's using like the major 7 chords, like in All I Want to Do. Like you guys mentioned, Carl's vocal, it's a doubled vocal. He did it 2 times, and it's just stratospheric the way that he reaches the to be. Like it's so high I can't even reach it, but it's unbelievable that Brian wasn't involved with this because it's kind of those major 7 chords are kind of his thing, especially around this era. Yeah, I'd say it's probably the third best song for me on this album. I was kind of, when I first heard this album, I didn't hear it until 96 or 97, and I was on the internet already by that time, and people had already been talking about this song. So I kind of expected the song to be great because people were already talking it up even at that time. So yeah, I wasn't really surprised. Like, I kind of expected it to be a great song.
Is that were you on Usenet back then in like the late 90s?
No, it was like this mailing list, Beach Boys mailing list. I can't even remember the name of it. It was Endless Summer or Endless Harmony or something.
That's a bygone. They don't have any of that crap anymore. It's so cool to look at those mailing lists and you're like, a simpler time on the internet, right? Before it became what it is now.
I used to have people, like, for instance, say if I've never heard this album before, Carl and Passions, I said, can anybody tape this album for me? And then somebody would send me a tape of like the vinyl or something in the mail for free.
Yeah, no, I know. It's like,
yeah, it's crazy.
Yep, and now
nobody would do that now.
Just stream it. Yeah, I don't know. It's like, it's good and bad, but that's another topic. You can go.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, I think in terms of like Al, like songwriting credits, this is one of the best things he was ever involved in my opinion. I know, like, it's also a Mike co-write. It's like Al and Mike, and I think Carl. I think, didn't he just get added on after the fact? I'm pretty sure. Like, I don't think he actually was involved in like the songwriting process of it. But like, I love this song. Like, I think I've said this before. If I ever met Al, I would tell him like, "All This Is That" is like one of my favorite Beach Boys songs. Like, thank you for writing that. And like one of you guys do like the lyrics of this one, like, yeah, like it's like they're like spiritual, but like it's not like down your throat like some of the other ones, like Transcendental Meditation and On Friends and songs like that. You know, this one, it feels genuine, and I actually like, I connect with the lyrics. Like, this is like a very calming song for me. Like, I'll put this song on when I'm like really stressed out or like there's something I'm worrying about. Like, this song legitimately calms me down. And there's not too many Beach Boys songs, honestly, like I would say that for. I can think of a handful, but like a lot of them, like I think they're really pretty, but I wouldn't say they like calm me down. This one actually does. Like, it puts me in a really like a calm state of mind, which I appreciate. So I like the song a lot.
I would say a lot of like that for me. That's a pretty calming album.
What's that?
Friends. Most of Friends is like a very calming, chill album. And parts of Smiley Smile, depending on which part you're listening to, because like I think like I mean, I just got the Analog Productions vinyl, so I was listening to that. Like, I definitely think like what's that song? Like Little Pad, stuff like that. Like Whistle In With Me Tonight. But then like the stuff like Wonderful with all the phase shifting, and what's that other one? Getting Hungry. I mean, my that's not gonna get you calm down. That's gonna like whoop. Still parts of Smiley Smile, but I just say Friends is a pretty calming album in general.
Yeah. All right, so I guess we'll move on to the final track on side 2 of Carl and the Passions, and this is the second Dennis and Daryl Dragon composition, and this is Cuddle Up. So this song, I really like the melody. Like, I think the verses are really pretty. It feels very like heartfelt and genuine. Like, I love how soft it is at the start, where you just have the piano and Dennis's vocal. I really love like that middle section of the song where it's just the piano, like really pretty playing. I don't know if that's Daryl Dragon playing it, or I don't know if that's Dennis, but really pretty piano in the middle of this song. My issue is after that, it starts to get into like overproduced territory where like they start really piling on like the strings, and you got like this like choir vocal going in the background. It just keeps getting louder and louder and louder. And by the end of it, it's like ridiculous. Like the last like 30-40 seconds of this song, it's like, oh my God, like Jesus, you know, we got to back it down a little bit here. But if this song was a little more stripped back, it would honestly be top 3 for me on the album. And it honestly is still pretty close to being top 3, but it's just a little overproduced for my liking. But I'll take it any day over Make It Good for sure. So what do you guys think of Cuddle Up?
I think it's okay. I think it's, first of all, too long. It does not have to be 5.5 minutes. I do agree. It gets way too overproduced at the end. I do like parts of it. I do think Dennis has a very heartfelt, earnest vocal on it too, which is always really nice. I'm a big sucker for earnest vocals. Like, seriously, like people with voices like that, you could sing the phone book and I'd be happy. Like, I just like really earnest voices like that. But yeah, it's just like I said, it starts off really good, like you said, Jake, and then it just gets too overproduced. I just think it's too long. I think you strip it back and maybe trim it a bit. You got something there. Definitely better than Make It Good, but still not for me one of Dennis's best. It's not Forever. It's not Wouldn't It Be Nice to Live Again. It's not You and I or Rainbows or anything like that from Pacific Ocean Blue, but it's still a solid number.
I think it's the better Dennis track on the album. It's probably like a mid-tier Dennis song for me. I still really enjoy it. I think what's stopping it is like what Jake said though, is the production, especially the second half. The first half is pretty good. I feel like this is what Make It Good was trying to be. Like this is like a good version of Make It Good. But I don't think Daryl Dragon was a really great collaborator with Dennis. I think that this was very just once you get to that second half, everything just kind of goes downhill, and it's just like high strings, unnecessary. I mean, the song's called "Cuddle Up." You don't need like a freaking like orchestra in the back. You don't need a whole like string section after the fact. Like if you kept it as that piano ballad, keyboard ballad, it would be a hell of a lot better for me. I would really like to see if like maybe like AI or something could like strip back that second half, so maybe we could actually have a really good version of this song.
One thing I can say about AI, I'm okay with it for that when you use it to strip things back. I don't like it when we start making voices out of thin air. I'm gonna get off my soapbox.
Justin.
So like you guys mentioned, same thing for me too. Like at least here we have some sort of melody and like melodic material. It's a little bit too long. The arrangement is just it's too much, especially towards the end. I agree as well that Daryl Dragon probably wasn't the best collaborator for Dennis. Dennis tended to go to extremes anyways, and so did Daryl Dragon, so it's like double extremes. Yeah, but it has a good melody. It would work as like a piano ballad or like with a Wurlitzer or something, and like brushes like on the drums or something. But yeah, for Dennis, this was one of his kind of around this time. It was one of his kind of songs he was proud of because of the melody and stuff. And they had this ballet around this time by this choreographer named Twyla Tharp called Deuce Coupe, and it was kind of based on Beach Boys songs. This whole like ballet. And they ended up going to that ballet in, I think it was 1976 or something. The whole band was there, and they watched it. And Dennis almost puked. He was so like overjoyed when his song was played, "Cuddle Up." He couldn't believe that they picked one of his songs to be in that ballet. But yeah, it's a pretty the meaning behind it was there, but it was just the arrangement and the execution wasn't. It was a little bit too much. It was a little bit too much.
One thing I wanted to say with Dennis and Daryl Dragon as like collaborators, like so didn't they also both like work together on like Sound of Free and Lady?
Yeah,
those songs I think are.
Oh, that's what wasn't it Dennis Wilson and Rumbo or something like that it was originally released as?
Greg Jacobson, wasn't it?
No, I think it was Daryl Dragon.
But I'm saying like those songs are actually good, so I feel like there's potential with like collaborator pairing. You know, like I feel like it wasn't necessarily the worst pairing. It's just like you said, like since they both like to go to extremes, like when they both were in that mode, it's like this is what you get. You get this overproduced mess of the song. So
Rumbo. Yeah, no, you're right. It's like what would be really cool is like I think Dennis needed someone that like was a little bit edgier to kind of round it out because he could be a bit sappy at times. So I think the problem was Daryl Dragon was also sappy. So it's like sap on top of sap on top of sap, and then what you get is something syrupy, which is what we got, something really syrupy. Now, if you get, like I said, get some a little bit of edginess to him, that's when you got the good stuff.
I will say, if you want to kind of hear what a stripped back version of this song could have sounded like I know on Feel Flows on the box set, there's a stripped back, there's like a cuddle up like piano demo, I think, where like you can hear what a more stripped back arrangement would have sounded like, and you can kind of tell listening to that like this song is better without all the production kind of like clogging it up, you know.
It's a good song.
There's a real it is for sure. Like there's a really pretty melody there. If I was Dennis, I would be really proud of this song too. Like I think it's beautiful. It's just I think they went a little overkill with the production. You know, sometimes less is more. You know, and I feel like this is a situation where like they could have made it. They could have put on an orchestra and all these strings and voices, but they didn't need to. You know. So I don't know. And I feel like if he was going for like a romantic vibe, which I think he kind of was with this song, you know, I almost feel like that kind of kills the vibe because it gets so loud, you know, like when it starts out, it's so peaceful. Like you could picture yourself like cuddling up with somebody to it. And then it gets really loud. And then it's like, oh God, you know, like Jesus. So I don't know. I just feel like it kind of kills the vibe with all the noise at the end. But all right, so that's it for the track by track run through of the album. But I know there's a lot of outtakes and unreleased material that I know we want to talk about. So Reilly, I know that's kind of your area of expertise. Do you want to kind of get into that?
Yeah, sure. So we're gonna go over some of the extra material, not just from this album, but from Holland, just because compared to Sunflower and Surf's Up, there's very limited amount. There's a lot, but it's not enough to split between those two albums. So I first one I want to talk about is Oh Sweet Something. That one was I found that a couple of weeks ago, and I texted Jake. I'm like, holy shit, this is awesome. And I've been playing it on repeat for the past couple of weeks. I'm so shocked that this was an outtake. This could have fit in on either of the albums, I feel. But I mean, I guess it is fair that they want to spread out the songwriting contributions. But I think I've said it before, and maybe I've said it in conversation and not on the podcast, I want more songs like Here She Comes. And then I found this. I'm like, this is like another song like Here She Comes. I really like the guitar part to it and some of the piano on it. It's similar to it, but it's also different enough that it's still its own song. But I mean, when they released this on the box set though, and I really looked into it, there is like no source of like where this song came from. Part of me wonders if this is just a Ricky and Blondie like solo project that they wanted to work on and just never released. Because like they said, they had groups when they recorded, so maybe this was just Ricky and Blondie just recording it, and they just never did anything with it, and it just sat in the vault. But maybe it's like an old Flame song that they never recorded. I don't know, but incredible song. I love the melody. Another like it never gets dull for me. I love it. I don't know if you guys have ever heard.
I was gonna say, so you sent me the list, right? You sent the list the other day, and I listened to this, and probably my favorite of the one that was on the list. It really impressed me, got me really hooked. I love the vocal, I love the melody. It's just a really awesome song, and I agree, easily could have been slotted in one of these albums, but it wasn't for whatever reason. Let's add to the list of why they left this in the vault for 50 years. I don't know.
Yeah, how is it not bootlegged? Like, I mean, it's one thing to like not be like released, but like this song is like good, like really, really fucking good.
Yeah,
maybe that's in a box somewhere. Like maybe it was like they found it like in a freaking bread basket, or I don't know. Like the places they found master tapes sometimes are like the funniest things. Like I think it was like they found master tapes for albums sometimes like in a bread basket in the closet or something. It's like the funniest thing. So maybe that's just they just found it somewhere.
So this song was kind of a surprise. Like I don't think a lot of fans knew about this at all because it was on the tape box. It actually just said Ricky and Blondie. It didn't say Beach Boys or anything. This was kind of just like a solo thing, I guess you could say. So I think that's part of the reason why it's never really been bootlegged up to this point. And it was just something that they just found recently.
Yeah, I remember before the box set came out, the Sail and Sailor box set. I remember I saw a couple of people on like forums and on Reddit, I think, posts like, "Does anybody know what this Oh Sweet Something song is?" You know, and people were saying, "I have no idea." And then there was like a lot of speculation, like, you know, like people were thinking of like, what's that? Isn't there a song by the Velvet Underground with a similar title? It's like Oh Sweet Nothing. People were like, "Oh, you know," I'm like, "Yeah, I don't think that has anything to do with that." But I think it's one of those things where like you said, because it's more of just a Ricky Blondie thing and not a Beach Boys thing, that's why it had kind of just like been buried away for so long and it hadn't come out yet. But yeah, like you said though, Reilly, this song is great. I remember the day the box set came out, I listened through most of it, and this was the clear standout for me. I was like, holy shit, like this is awesome. I've never heard this before, and it's incredible. I love the chorus. Great verses, great chorus, just great song in general, great guitar. Like you said, it's like Here She Comes, like 2.0. It's excellent. I love it.
Here She Comes 2, Electric Boogaloo. But I love it. It's so good. It's so good, and it's in my top 5 most listened to songs for the year. And I know it's like we're only like 5 or 6 weeks into the year, but for me that's like really impressive because I'll listen to the same song like 10 times every day. Like Fool's Gold by the Stone Roses, like has been my number 1 song for like maybe the past 6 months, and by a landslide. Like I've listened to Fool's Gold at least like 200 times. And for Sweet Something to be in my top 5 is crazy.
No, that I have the same problem too. Like the one I've listened to a lot lately. We talk about Silent Time, "Sweet Love" by Prince, or I think "Slow Love." I was never crazy. I was never crazy about that song 10 years ago when I first heard it. Now I'm like, holy shit! I keep listening to it. I'm like, I love it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, with some of these outtakes, I don't think we're gonna reach the level of "Oh Sweet Something," but like we've said, that's an incredible song. Next one I want to talk about is "Carry Me Home." I really enjoy the song. I want to say that first. I really do enjoy it, but personally, I just like "Hold On, Dear Brother" better, and I feel like this is like a slightly worse version of that song, at least in sentiment of what or the topic of the song. Um, Part of it is "To My Daddy" part makes me cringe a little bit, but I think that's just like the kind of times we live in. But the rest of the song is a very beautiful song. I really like that it's Blondie and Dennis. I think that's kind of a weird duo for some reason, but it works really well for the song. It's a slower number. I really enjoy it, but I do see why it's an outtake compared to some of the other tracks that were out around this time by Ricky and Blondie, and I think Dennis also has a co-writing credit on it.
I think it's better than "Hold On, Dear Brother," but I'm not crazy about that song. I really like the song. Wasn't this the song that Brian vetoed for a while? Like he didn't like it because it talks about death. Is this the song I'm thinking of, or am I thinking of something else?
I have heard before that this song, like, it could have been released earlier, but part of the reason it wasn't was because of the subject matter. Obviously, like with what happened to Dennis, like Dennis is like the way he died tragically and stuff. Because it is like a really bleak and like depressing song, so I kind of get why it was held back for a bit.
Yeah, I like the song, but like I also think it is a bit heavy for the Beach Boys. Like I don't usually associate the Beach Boys with, well, I shouldn't say that because obviously like "Till I Die" and stuff, but it is heavy for them. But I do enjoy the song. But I agree, it's not quite as good as what was the one we talked about? "Oh Sweet Something." That definitely was the highlight. That was definitely the highlight. But I still really quite enjoy the song. It's probably number 2 for me of the outtakes because I'll be honest with you, some of these outtakes didn't do much for me. I'm just saying it right now.
Yeah, this song, it's like really haunting. The subject matter is very like dark, like it's like a soldier at war, I think, that like, you know, is like afraid of death, and it's just a really like depressing and kind of bleak lyric. But Dennis, like his vocal is so good on this, like he really sells it, like he really, like, it sounds so genuine. And Blondie's parts on this are great too. It's like I think I would like to hear more from that duo. Like, I think that would have worked. I think it worked really well on this song. I love that middle section that Dennis sings, like, "The rain falling down on me, the wind is blowing." Like, I really like that part. And then "I don't want to die." Like, it's a really moving song, really powerful. It's one of those songs I don't want to hear all the time because it is a bit depressing, and I will say it is a little slow. It feels a little long to me sometimes, but this is definitely a great song. I love it a lot. I think it's great. Any thoughts, Justin?
Yeah, I have this pretty much the same thoughts as all of you guys. It's really depressing lyric. Dennis's vocal kind of sells it though. I'm not gonna lie. Like you said, Blondie sounds great on this. I'd actually heard this song before they released it on the box set. It was in bootlegs before too as well, albeit in worse quality. But yeah, it's kind of been kind of folklore around the Beach Boys camp, this song, for a long time, that it was kind of going to be released at one point, but then they pulled it back, and then, oh, we're going to release it, oh, we're going to pull it back, kind of thing. So it was just a couple of times like that, which is kind of annoying, but they can be like that, I guess you could say.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I still think it's a very good song. I still really enjoy it. I just like "Hold On, Dear Brother" better. Hard Time. For me, I think it's a cool, hard rocking song, but I gotta be honest, personally, I think it's just like a regular Ricky and Blondie song. I think their hard rockers have been done better. "Oh Sweet Something" or "Here She Comes." But it's still a very, very enjoyable song. It definitely, if you look at the Flame material, it fits in relatively well. So I enjoy it. I feel like they've done a lot better on a lot of other things, but it's still a good song. It's just, you know, I've heard much better songs by them. So I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, solid, but I can see why it was an outtake because it's not their finest work, but it's a solid song. It's a solid piece. I agree with what you said, Reilly.
So I can see why the song was left off like Holland, because I think this would have been like an outtake for Holland. I can see why it was left off because I don't know where it would have fit on the album. Personally, though, I really love this song. I think it's great. I think it's a great rocker. It has a great energy to it. I first heard this one before the Sail On Sailor box set came out. I think I heard it. Somebody put it up on YouTube, I think, and I listened to it, and like I really like this one a lot. I think it's got great energy. I love how, like, right from the start, you just launches right into it. It's like, I want to understand this thing called love. Like, it's like a great opening. I love the guitar solo on this one. Like, it like really rips. It seems like Blondie and Ricky, whenever they had a guitar solo on their songs, it was always awesome. But I really like this one a lot. Great energy throughout. Great chorus, great verses. I love it. I think it's great. So I wish it had gotten an official release earlier. Justin?
Yeah, like you guys mentioned, like you can see why this is kind of left off the album. It doesn't really fit with the rest of Holland. It's too bad that Ricky and Blondie couldn't record more material. It would have been really interesting to see if they'd had like a side project or something to release this kind of material, or to have like a Flame. I know the Flame second album. Where is that? It's been recorded. Where is it? Where is it? Or if a Flame third album, that would have been amazing too. But they're definitely really talented writers and talented musicians. That's Blondie usually playing those guitar solos that are just face melting kind of solos. But yeah, it's I really enjoy this track, but I can see why it was left off of Holland.
Yeah, you know, my favorite part of the song, I would say, Justin, you probably know the part if you listen to it, like the right after the chorus, like the hot time, and then you got like that descending guitar line, like the dun, 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 dun. That's what makes it for me. It's something about that part. Yeah, it sounds so good to my ears. I love it. All right, what else we got, Reilly, for outtakes?
So we're kind of running low on these. Just because, I mean, there wasn't a lot of outtakes from this time, but the rest of these are just kind of meh.
Weird.
They're kind of there. But I will go with the best of those ones, I think, is Out in the Country.
Oh, yeah.
I don't really want to talk about version 2 much because that's just like a random vocal demo, and it's a lot slower than version 1, which I think was incredible. And I'm just shocked that version never got lyrics put over it, because I think it's a very cool, fast-paced song. It has some of that like folk rock country vibes to it that I like from this era. And I guess it really is unfinished more than just an outtake. I do like some of the lyrics that are in version 2. It's just version 2 is slower, and it doesn't have really a backing track to it. But version 1 is faster and is only a backing track. So I guess they really weren't sure where to go with this song. But version 1 could have been
version 1 was finished, but they mixed out the vocals on the box set. It wasn't one of the Beach Boys that sang the vocals on it.
What was the name? It was like Don something, right?
Yeah. Don Goldberg. Yeah, I believe. Yeah, he wrote it.
Oh, you know, something funny with this song. I think I read somewhere, I heard somewhere, was that apparently, like, they were thinking about like releasing it, or like I think they were planning something for it, and I think it was like Bruce or somebody got pissed that like there was an outsider involved with the band, so he stole the tapes.
Yeah, he hid the tapes.
Stole the tape, ran off with it, which is hilarious. But so that's why they couldn't do anything with it, because Bruce ran off with the vocal. So
that was part of the reason why he left the band, and yeah, there was a lot of stuff like that.
Damn, I really like that song. I want to hear that full version if you guys have a link.
It's on YouTube.
Yeah, it's up.
I just searched it up. I couldn't find it. I just see version 1 and 2.
Maybe they pulled it down.
Maybe Bruce took it down. Another reason why I don't like Bruce. I'm just messing around. I like Bruce, but god damn, I did not know that story. Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate they didn't leave that vocal on, because they have left vocals on from other like people outside of the Beach Boys on some of these other box sets. So I don't know why they pulled that one off.
Yeah, I saw
some
people weren't happy about that. I remember I saw some people. Why the hell would they remove it? Like, that's so annoying. But obviously,
yeah, I'm not happy about it at all.
Somebody in the Beach Boys camp probably vetoed it. You know, they were like,
Bruce.
I mean, it could have been, but I don't know.
He has involvement in the box sets.
That's true.
So.
That's true.
Matt.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good, but like I want to hear the version with those vocals in, because I think like the backing track is cool, but I want to hear the vocals. But yeah, definitely I agree. The best of the rest of the outtakes, because some of them are just like there's the 3 Brian instrumentals. Those are fine. Those are kind of cool, but they're just kind of like, I call them like fun trifles, if you will. And that Give Me Some Lovin' just drags on and on and on.
That was gonna be my next one. Give Me Some Lovin'. I think there was a lot of room and for a lot of potential with this one, because I really like the Spencer Davis Group one. Give Me Some Lovin' with Steve Winwood on vocals. So I mean, I'm a big fan of Steve Winwood, so imagine hearing like a Blondie Chaplin or one of the Beach Boys singing this one and belting it out. But when I first listened to it, excited, I was like, this is kind of dog shit. Like, respectfully, it's just doesn't do anything. It's just give me some love and for like 5 minutes, and it's just so boring. It doesn't go anywhere.
My thoughts are like
one of the worst covers.
I'm listening to this thinking like Jake would hate this.
Oh, yeah, it does absolutely nothing for me. Yeah, it's it kind of feels like they were one of those like they're messing around things, kind of like with like you think a song is like Rolling Up to Heaven and shit, where they're just kind of messing around with the melody, you know. Like I kind of feel like that's what this is. Like it's just like they just keep doing the same thing over and over again. And I kind of thought the same thing as you, Reilly. I was like, oh, I like this song. Like I like the song by the Spencer Davis Girl. I was like, this is gonna be interesting. And then it's like, oh God, like I can see why this hasn't got a release. Like Jesus, like what were they doing here? Yeah, I'm not a fan of it at all. I'm not a fan of that other. I'm sure you'll get to it, but there's that other one, like that Rooftop Harry thing on here too. That doesn't do anything for me either. But I know that has like a fun story to it. So
yeah, I mean, I guess we just get to it now. I mean, Justin,
okay.
You have anything to say about "Give Me Some Lovin'"?
Give Me Some Lovin'. So before the box set came out, I don't think anybody had heard this one. It was just kind of like floating around that this was a track or whatever that was of the era. And everybody was kind of like, oh, is this the Spencer Davis song or is this like an original song? Like nobody really knew, right? So then when we heard it, it's just like, oh my God, this isn't good.
There's a reason why it wasn't released.
There's a reason why, yeah.
But I mean, honestly, let's just lump together the rest. Rooftop Harry, Body Talk, and what was the last one? Spark in the Dark.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a weird one.
Yes, I mean, all over the place, really. I mean, these are just not even like proper recordings. I think these are just mostly just like demos, at least in my eyes, just random demos of like sounds coming from instruments, for sure. Yeah. There's definitely some chord progressions there, for sure, but it just it doesn't do anything. There's nothing special. I mean, when I first heard Spark in the Dark, I'm like, oh, is this like a demo for Funky Pretty? And it's just...
That's what I thought.
Not at all.
That's what everybody thought, yeah.
Not at all a demo for Funky Pretty. I mean, it's just nothing. I didn't get anything from these.
Maybe it's like the closest the Beach Boys ever got to ambient music. I don't know what this... kind of like a little ambient, I guess. I don't know.
No, I was going to say, just, with how quirky some of these like extra like outtakes and stuff were on the Sail and Sailor box set, you have to wonder, like, when we get that 15 Big Ones Love You box set, like what kind of weird shit are we gonna get on there? Because like, you know, you already, like, a lot of those songs to begin with are weird, like especially on Love You, so it's like, oh God, like what kinds of things didn't get released that we're gonna hear?
I think most of the stuff that from that era, Love You, it's out there like in bootleg form. There's like only a few. Yeah, there's only a few things that we haven't heard that from that era, as far as I know, anyways. But yeah, these songs around this era, they were titling songs really weirdly when they started. Like I forget what Feel Flows was originally called when they originally just made the backing track. They'd give them weird names like this, like Rooftop Harry and like Spark in the Dark and stuff like that, just to, like, for the backing tracks. And then they'd write lyrics to it afterwards, and then it would be a different song, right? So these songs are really unfinished. Spark in the Dark eventually became Chain Reaction of Love for Brian Wilson. That was like many years later. He used that again as Chain Reaction of Love for us. It was Sweet Insanity, the Sweet Insanity album. And then what's the other song? Body Talk. That's a Brian or Dennis song? Are we?
These are all Brian. I mean,
they're all Brian.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that one I don't remember much about it. Rooftop Harry has that fun story about. Oh God, I heard about that story years ago because that engineer posted it online, like back in the 90s. That Bruce was there and Brian was there, and I guess Brian fell asleep or something before the session. He was like in a lotus position for like 6 hours or something, and then all of a sudden he got up. He's like, "Oh yeah, we gotta mic the piano and everything." And like Bruce is like, "Hurry, get the mics on the piano." And then they record all the instruments, and then they had a bass player come in the back door. He just played his part and he left. And there was another guy, Luther Coffey, another bass player, came in and played his part and was like, turn up motherfucker, or something when he was playing it. So it's just like a lot of weird like behavior like that. And then they'd all raced off in a car at like 5 o'clock in the morning. So it makes sense with the music that we hear on this. It's kind of weird, and like he has like that Calliope sound on there. It's very disjointed. It's kind of shows you where Brian's mental stage is right now too, as well. Like it's really disjointed music. Doesn't really make sense musically. You can see him kind of going downhill at this point.
I feel like a lot of like Brian's like quirkier like songs started around this time, because like this is also not long before, like a couple of years ago, the Child of Winter single too, which I've made my feelings clear about. But like you can kind of tell like Brian's kind of losing it a little bit, like some of these songs, it's like you kind of got to wonder, like, what were they thinking? Like, were they thinking this was going to be something that was going to go somewhere? Like, I don't know. It's just, it definitely starts getting a bit odd around this time for sure.
Yeah.
It was audio proof of his declining mental state, some of this stuff. And I'm not trying to be snarky with it. It's just true. Like, you can't talk about quirky Brian without talking about the whole Love You thing, right? Roller Skating Child, Solar System, Johnny Carson.
Like 5 years though.
No, I know, but it was a few years after. It was a couple years. No, but I just want to say one quick thing. I know you mentioned, you said Sweet Insanity. Wasn't that around the time of Smart Girls?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
God, that song is great.
My name is Brian, and I'm the man.
We'll talk about that at a later date.
See, when Brian does it, it's cool, but when Mike does it, it's a problem. Like,
we can have a whole debate on that too.
We could.
Hey, one thing I wanted to mention, just like because I feel like since it is around this era, we can go into this a little more, like if we do like more of like a solo episode. But I just kind of wanted to hear your guys' thoughts on this. What are your guys' thoughts on like the American Spring material that was being recorded like with Brian and Marilyn and Diane around this time? What do you guys think of that stuff?
Yeah, it's all right.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, but I know they don't have conventional voices out there.
Right.
But I think that sometimes works to their advantage, though. Like I feel like sometimes it makes songs work. Sometimes I feel like, and like I'm kind of hit or miss with their stuff. Like there's certain stuff doesn't do anything for me, but then there's other songs I really love, like that Sweet Mountain song. I freaking love. Like I think that's awesome. Like really well produced. Like really like kind of a cool vibe to it. I also really like I wish I wrote down some of these. I really like I like the song It's Like Heaven, which I believe actually went to was it David or Sean Cassidy? It ended up being recorded by one of them in the later on in the 70s, but I definitely prefer the American Spring version. I do like their version of Lady by Dennis, which I had mentioned before. Yep. I think kind of one of my like minor hot takes is I kind of maybe prefer their version a little bit more because I really like the production on it. I like the arrangement a lot on their version. I think it's an upgrade, but I do like Dennis's vocal on the original, so they're pretty close for me. But really like their version of that song. I also like Shying Away, which was a single by them. I really like that one. I will say I think that was an example of like Brian being a little bit out of touch with like the musical landscape at that time, because I think there's a quote from Brian where he was like, "Oh, this is gonna be a hit. Like this is gonna be a huge hit. This is gonna be the song," And it's like, if you listen to like the song, I like the song a lot. I think it's catchy. I think it's fun. But like, if you listen to like what was on the radio at that time, like, I don't know. I just feel like Brian was a little bit out of touch there with like the song's potential for being a hit, So
yeah,
do you guys?
Yep. I haven't actually given it much of a listen besides some of like the key songs. But I, to be fair, I've never really gone out of my way to listen to it. I mean, it's not on streaming, so it's a bit hard. But
CD. I got that CD, but I think it had like tried to rip it, and like I guess it was kind of a little scratched up. And I'm very picky with my rips, so I don't think I ever actually finished ripping the whole thing. I think it was briefly on streaming for like a week.
Yeah,
so I think it was like. It was on streaming for like a week and then it vanished. And I don't even want to know how much the vinyl costs. I can only imagine how much that costs. I just looked at the Flame album. My God, that cost a fortune.
Yeah, I remember it popped up on streaming. I forgot when that was, but like I was like, oh shit! Like somebody posted it on the Reddit, so I was like, oh, I'm adding these to my Beach Boys playlist. And then within a week, it was gone. Like just vanished. I was like, oh man,
Copyright extension. That's why.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That album too, like even back in the 70s, I was reading an interview with Brian and Marilyn in like 1976, and even then she was saying like it's really rare, that album. Like
Yeah.
barely anybody has it. So it was
How
like
much,
commanding quite a bit of money even then.
Matt, you mentioned the Flame album was going for a lot of money. How much were you seeing it for, just out of curiosity?
Plus for like $70-$80.
Mm.
Yeah, not cheap. And it was reissued in like briefly in like 2005. That was also like $70-$80 on vinyl, at least. I know it's at least that's on streaming. Maybe that'll get reissued one day. I'm honestly convinced.
It will.
One, you
It
know
will.
what? I know that vinyl, there's an art to mastering vinyl, but maybe one day we can get to the point where we can have MOD vinyl in good quality. Maybe someday, who knows?
Oh, Reilly, didn't you want to talk a little bit about some of the Flame stuff?
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to the Flame album. I think each of us I think we all listened to it a little bit. I got done re-listening to it for the second time, and I've got to say, it's holy shit. I loved it. It was it's one of the best albums I've heard in a long time. I haven't been fair to it. I mean, I'm a huge Ricky and Blondie fan, but I kind of always assumed that their peak was with the Beach Boys. I think I'm wrong. I think the Flame album is some of their best material. My standout is "Don't Worry, Bill." I all of their music is very Beatles inspired, but I think this song, like, to me, I don't know why, it just reminds me of randomly "Free as a Bird," and I think it's just the guitar part to it. But it's the vocals awesome. I mean, the melodies on all of the songs are awesome. It's very Beatles inspired, but I think it's a weird way. It's kind of a mix of their like rocking material with the Beach Boys, like "Here She Comes" and "Oh Sweet Something," and you mix it with like the Beatles sound, and that's what you get with the album. I love a lot of the songs on it. I mentioned "Don't Worry, Bill." I think one of the penultimate track to this song, to the album, because it ends on a reprise of "I See the Light," which was or "See the Light," which is the first track. "Another Day Like Heaven's" also very good. "Lady," not the Dennis one, but also very good song. "Make It Easy." Highs and Lows. There's a lot of good material on that album. It's like 60s rock put into the 70s with like 70s style sound. So
I listened to the whole album today. I've listened to it before, but I just thought I'd give it a re-listen before we did this episode. Yeah, like you said, it's very Beatles inspired. I kind of get like Beatles, Badfinger vibes from it. Like they kind of got that going, little bit of like a power pop vibe in certain songs. I do. There's certain songs that I really like a lot. Like "Lady," I think is great. Like you said, like you made the Beatles comparison with "Don't Worry, Bill" to like "Free as a Bird." I heard that as well, by the way. That was a good call. I definitely heard that. Also for like for "Lady," I kind of hear, or no, "Highs and Lows," I mean, I kind of hear on the verse, I hear a little bit like Julia, a little bit like it's got like that mellow, like White Album kind of era vibe to it, which I like. And I love the way it goes into the chorus, like the highs and lows. Like I really like that. I really like "Lady." I think it's a really pretty song. I wouldn't say like the album as a whole I'm a huge fan of, but I could see it growing on me. Because like I said, like the songs that like are the standouts I think are really great. In terms of their material, like with the Flame compared to their material with the Beach Boys, I do think they reached higher highs with the Beach Boys material. Like "Leaving This Town," like that song is phenomenal, and I don't think anything on the Flame album is near as good as that, but there's definitely some strong moments, and I like it for sure. I could see it growing on me. So
I think I gotta be fair. "Here She Comes," "Leaving This Town," "Oh Sweet Something," which again, why the fuck was that an outtake? I think those are their best material. But I think as a whole, overall, like if I was like look at it as a whole package, I really prefer like this album. At least "Don't Worry, Bill." How the hell did I forget that name of that song? "Highs and Lows" is awesome. And "Another Day Like Heaven." I mean, again, Ricky and Blondie were very, very talented songwriters. Very, I think, underrated in the whole Beach Boys canon, especially like discluding their live presence, which was a whole separate story. I think that they were great songwriters, and I know they both left on their own accord, but I think I talked to Jake about this. What if they didn't leave and they kind of kept on pushing that direction? I mean, I know the Caribou sessions were kind of like not much came out of those. I mean, I know Good Timin did, but I I know Ricky was there for that, but like, imagine if Blondie was there. What could have happened in '74 with them?
I don't know though. Would you still have had Endless Summer blow up? That's the thing, because that's kind of what stopped everything was American Graffiti and then Endless Summer. That's what kind of put a stop to all this progressive music they were making. If they were still in the group, maybe would they have still pushed for it? Possibly. I think as far as numbers go, because you had Carl and Dennis that still wanted to do that stuff, and then you would have had Ricky and Blondie on their side, so that's 4 against 2. Because Mike and Al seemed to be the ones that were kind of more pushing for the oldies, especially Mike. So I think Al was pretty big on it too. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a cool thing to think about, kind of to go down that rabbit hole. But I know, wasn't it one of the Loves that got Ricky out of the group, right?
Yep. It's Steve, right?
That was, you think Blondie left first in '73.
Sorry, Blondie. I was thinking of Blondie.
Ricky left a lot more on his own accord.
He left on his own accord. You're right, because he was
he was there for '74 for most of it. He was there for the beginning of like the Endless Summer craze. He's in the inside cover of Endless Summer.
I'm sorry, I was thinking Blondie.
Why did they put him on the inside? Why didn't they put him on the outside with the rest of the band?
Because nobody would have known who he was. I'm kidding.
No, you're probably right.
He was in the band at that point.
Because it's hard to even tell. They're like so caricatured. Like, I didn't even realize for a long time who he was supposed to be. I thought it was just like random ass guys on the cover. It's just so caricatured. You kind of can tell, but you have to look hard.
Well, he left in November of '74, and he's actually on some of 15 Big Ones.
Yep, it's okay.
And I think Hadaphonia too, right?
I think you're right. Yeah.
At least the Endless Summer cover is not as bad as the Spirit of America cover. What the hell is that? Seriously.
Freaking Mickey Mouse, a
freaking turkey.
You got the Playboy, the bunny, the model on there. Yeah,
they just went all out for that one.
America's band.
Yeah.
This is not as bad as that Beatles rock and roll music cover with like the hands holding.
That's pretty bad.
I can see why John Lennon. I think it was John Lennon or Ringo. I think they both hated it. I don't blame them for hating it. It's awful.
Yeah, because it doesn't represent. It's like 50s themed.
That's what Ringo said. And then John Lennon's like, this looks like something the Monkees would do. The Monkees had some pretty bad covers too. Oh my god, there's this one that's called Barrel Full of Monkeys. It's literally like
oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
I've seen that one. Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention, since we've done this on the previous album episodes, I did want to mention some reviews of this album and maybe like some reviews from the time and more current assessments of it. So your favorite reviewer, Matt, Robert Kreisgau, so he said the album at the time, he called the album fairly pleasant, but even the highlights aren't all that hot. Rolling Stone's Stephen Davis felt that only 4 tracks were acceptable and that Brian's lack of genuine involvement hurt the album, which, I mean, I agree with the second point. I mean, I wouldn't say, I think the highlights on here are pretty good, but I mean, I guess it's a fair criticism. Another reviewer called it probably the least successful of the Beach Boys albums, which is a bit harsh, I feel like. Conversely, in his review for the San Diego Door, Cameron Crowe wrote, "So tough, find some excellent music with no trace of anything left over from the Pet Sounds days. I could have sworn Hold On Dear Brother was the band," which, Reilly, I feel like you would agree with that. And then a more like retrospective review. So All Music said that the songwriting was neither as solid as 1970 Sunflower, nor as idiosyncratic as 1971 Surf's Up, though, and the few fans left from the 60s were undoubtedly turned off, if not by the weak songs, then certainly by the muddy sound. Still, there are a few moments of beauty. And then there's another comment that says there were sublime moments, but unlike Sunflower and Surf's Up, it sounded nothing like the work of a coherent band, which that I do agree with, because it does kind of sound like it's all over the place. Like, you can definitely tell like there's like different groups, like different like fractions of the band recording it. He noted that Dennis's contributions were magnificent epics, explorations of the heart and sound that showed his vision was way out of kilter with the rest of the band.
For the last point.
Yeah. There's a harsh review from 1978 where somebody said Carl and the Passions was generally accepted as being the lamest Beach Boys album since the fragmented 2020. Sorry, Justin. That bears the mark of a project with too little thought behind it. Peter Ames Carlin, who I believe wrote a couple books on Brian and the Beach Boys, he said the album is a schizophrenic affair and stylistically meandering. And then John Stebbins wrote that apart from Marcella, Cuddle Up, and Make It Good, the album is forgettable. I mean, I don't know why he's citing Make It Good as one of the better songs. It's
schizophrenic affair. There's something you wouldn't say nowadays. But anyway, what I was gonna say was like John Tobler. Wasn't he one of those biographers? Because I know that some of those I haven't read that one, but is he one of the ones that thinks like Brian did everything, everybody else was nothing? Because I know there were certain books written in the 70s that I haven't read them, but there are, from what I read on the Smiley Small forums, so I don't know if that's the best source, there are certain books that were written about the Beach Boys in the 70s where some of the biographers kind of basically said like, oh, Brian did everything, everybody else sucked. So like sometimes one thing I've noticed with some of those biographies, it depends on who's writing it. Like the Stephen Gaines book, some of the takes he wrote in that were, have you guys read that book? Some of the takes he read.
Oh yeah, I have it.
Heroes and Villains?
Heroes and Villains, yeah. Like, say like Beach Boys Today was like, he said some really stupid ass shit.
Yeah, I remember that. I was like, his album appeared terrible.
Oh, they were horrible. Yeah, I mean, because honestly, I think he was just trying to write like the gossip. Like it was just like all the crazy shit that this band went through. I think the funniest story was the one where like Audrey was in a hotel room and like I think like her father or somebody was having a heart attack and she calls the cops and they arrest her because there's a joint on the table or something. It's like the funniest damn thing. I'm like, did this actually happen?
There's also one other comment. This is the comment from Mike. I think I mentioned Mike had commented on the album earlier in the episode, but Mike said in his autobiography, he called Carl and the Passions a disjointed rush job, hastily assembled between live gigs that even Carl admitted was weak overall. More than anything, the album emphasized how confused we were about our brand, which I mean, I feel like at that point they were kind of trying to figure out where they wanted to go, like in terms of their direction, you know. Like you mentioned earlier, Reilly, like it would have been really interesting. Like I feel like on Holland, they did kind of start to figure out, like find that sound with Blondie and Ricky. And like if Endless Summer hadn't happened, it would have been, and Blondie and Ricky had both stayed in the band. Obviously, I know Blondie had left because of the Steve Love incident, but it would have been interesting to see like another like Holland type album, you know, like how do they keep evolving with that sound, you know? So that would have been really cool to hear. But instead, obviously, we had a few years of no recording or no releases, and then we got 15 big ones. So definitely it would have been like, it's a big what if for sure.
Also said, this is an album which I have loved for a long time. Carl and the Passion So Tough has its moments of breathtaking genius and experimentation. When this was released, I remember how different and fresh it sounded, still does. So he wrote that for the liner notes for the Twofers.
Who was that?
Elton John.
Oh, okay, yeah. Makes sense. Yeah.
I enjoyed the album. Yeah. And then also there was a band called Saint Etienne. I'm probably saying that way wrong. Saint Etienne.
Yeah, I've heard of them. Yeah.
They titled their album So Tough as an homage to the Beach Boys, and then they called it Violation, You Need a Mess of Help to Stand Alone. So that's pretty cool. They give us one kind of cool thing about this group. It seems like no matter what album they put out, there's somebody out there that took some influence from it, that was inspired by, I mean, obviously like Pet Sounds is the big one, but then Smiley Smile is like, you know, that's Animal Collective basically. And even things like this and things like Holland and Love You. And it's like people are always taking stuff from it, you know, which is pretty cool.
No, it's cool to hear other artists like comment on like how they were influenced by this stuff. Like I know like Wild Honey, Jim Morrison liked Wild Honey. I think of Holland. I remember Tom Petty said like Holland's one of his favorite Beach Boys albums. I think he said like he loved Carl on it, like he loved like The Traitor and songs like that, which I think is really cool. You know, it's like it's cool that like these other artists are to these lesser known Beach Boys albums, you know, so I think it's really cool.
Paul McCartney with Pet Sounds, I know he like worships that album. That's basically Sgt. Pepper's wouldn't exist without it.
Right. Oh, and speaking of Pet Sounds, I know we mentioned earlier how like it's kind of weird how like they paired this album with Pet Sounds. Like it doesn't seem like the greatest choice necessarily. There's a comment from David Leaf, who's obviously like a well-known Beach Boys like biographer. He said, according to Leaf, the Pet Sounds pairing in America helped make So Tough seem like the Beach Boys' worst album ever. Which I mean, it might be a bit of an overstatement, but like, yeah, for sure. Like if you were a record buyer at the time, and like you said, I think Justin, like, you know, you get home and you listen to them, it's like, you know, Pet Sounds is Pet Sounds, you know, and this is something brand new. And really a lot of it doesn't even necessarily sound like the Beach Boys, you know, like songs like Here She Comes, like that's not exactly, it doesn't have like that Beach Boys sound to it, you know, as great as the song is. So yeah, it's just a very odd pairing, I feel like, but yeah.
Speaking of Leaf, I think his book is the one that kind of portrays Brian as like everything and that everybody else was nothing. The original version, at least.
Is that like the Beach Boys and the California Myth? Yeah.
Yes, that apparently. Like, I don't know. There's like a lot of books about the Beach Boys. We probably honestly have a whole freaking podcast about that. But like, there's a lot of different books about the Beach Boys. Like that one, apparently, it says it's Brian did everything, everybody else was nothing. There's the Yank book, which is like tabloid fodder. There's I think it's called like the Beach Boy, the nearest faraway place. Somebody said that book is so dense that like it starts with the history of California and then it takes like 200 pages to get to the Beach Boys or something like that. I never even read it, but that's what people say. And then apparently, I know there's the one you just showed, Justin. Apparently that's one of the better ones. It's Catch a Wave. I never read that one, but I know that one's pretty good from what I hear. And then there's the Landy book. I mean, it's not Landy, but we know Landy wrote it. The one that for 300 pages. Then there's the Mike book, which is a solid read, other than some questionable things. Then there's the other Brian book, which quite frankly is ghost written. So it'd be interesting. We should do a thing about Beach Boys.
Yeah,
that'd be a good episode.
Yeah, no, for books, the only two I've read Heroes and Villains, and I've read Catch a Wave, and I really enjoyed both. I know Heroes and Villains is like gossipy, but like I feel like I again, I think like as you learn more about the Beach Boys, you can kind of pick out like what sounds legit and what sounds like bullshit, So like I feel like
there is some truth. There is some truth in a lot of the stories.
Yeah.
I read that one. I read the Real Beach Boy, the Dennis one, which is good, but a little hero worshipy. I can say it's a little hero worshipy.
Has anyone read the David Marks one?
I want to buy it.
I want to read it, but I've never read it. That would be interesting. But yeah, no, I need to read Catch a Wave. Catch a Wave is what I need to read. I'm not reading I'm not reading that Nearest Faraway Place that was like 700 pages or whatever.
You were mentioning John Tobler. I had his book when I was a kid. It was mainly just pictures. There wasn't a lot of writing in it.
Okay, it's 400 pages, and apparently someone says that it actually apparently talks about the roots of Brian's family. That goes back to Kansas. I guess that's where Murray's family was, but I don't know. Apparently, from what I hear, it's dense. So
I might read it.
The Catch a Wave book goes a little bit into that at the start. Like it kind of talks about like Murray's family and like how he had kind of a hard time growing up. Like his dad was abusive to him and stuff. So like it kind of goes into that a little bit. So that's how I kind of learned a little bit, but it's not too dense though. Like it moves on from it, So.
Yeah.
All right. Do you guys have any closing thoughts or anything else you want to say about Carl and the Passions or anything about this era?
Yeah, it's like a mixed bag of a record. It's never been my favorite Beach Boys album. It probably never will be my favorite Beach Boys album. I think you said it at the beginning, Jake. I think the problem with it is it's sandwiched between Surf's Up and Holland, which are two of their best albums. So it kind of suffers because of that. I think if this had come, like, for example, let's just say this had come after like 15 Big Ones. It makes sense. It's like quality-wise, it would have probably looked better by comparison. Or like if it come after like Keeping the Summer Alive or like something of quality of that. But the fact that it's sandwiched between two of their best, I think it only looks worse by comparison.
Justin, where does this album rank for you? Like if you were to rank the Beach Boys albums?
Not towards the top for me. I'd say it's kind of a grower. Like I said, a lot of the songs are just kind of growers. They don't really hit you at first. You kind of have to listen to it quite a bit. And you also have to be a fan of this kind of era of rock music as well, too, to kind of pick up on all the different genres and to be open-minded to not just being a Beach Boys fan, to enjoy all these other artists like the band or like the gospel artists or whatever, soul artists and stuff like that. So,
Reilly, didn't you say this ranked around like 14th-ish for you? But I think we had it similarly ranked, me and you.
Yeah, my album rankings change all the time. They've changed since we've done the video. Not drastically, but a solid amount. But I love this album. Maybe it's because Here She Comes was one of the first songs I found by the band. But right now it's at number 11. But tomorrow maybe it'll be number 8, and 2 weeks from now maybe it'll be at 14. But I mean, a lot of the songs that people don't like, or at least one of them in particular, Hold On Dear Brother, I really enjoy. And even though there is a mishmash of style, I still really enjoy it. I really love this era. It's nowhere near Holland for me, but
yeah,
this one I really enjoy, and I don't know. I love it, even despite its flaws and despite its like kind of all over the placeness. I really enjoy it. So
I know we're gonna get to Holland the next time we do Holland, but there we're talking about a grower. That was a grower because the first time I listened to that, it did nothing.
Yeah, kind of the same here. Yeah.
Again and again, and I'm like, okay, I see you, because it gets really good the more time you listen to it.
Yeah. Holland is always going to be top 2 for me. I literally did the math, and I've showed Jake this. By 0.03, Holland is right below Today. So it might as well be number 1. So.
All right, I guess we'll wrap it up there then, if we're good. So thank you, everybody, for listening to this 10th episode of Good Timin. I hope you all enjoyed the show. Had a great time discussing Carl and the Passions with you guys. It was fun hearing everyone's thoughts and opinions on the different tracks and, of course, the outtakes as well. As always, if those of you listening like this podcast and want to hear more, feel free to subscribe or follow wherever you're listening. We greatly appreciate the support as it motivates us to make more episodes in the future. Also, as a reminder, the podcast is available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So there's plenty of different places to listen and keep up with the show. So thank you again, everybody, for listening, and we will see you all next time. Bye-bye.